What is up, NFC East football fans, and welcome into another edition of the NFC East Roundtable, powered by BetUS. We've made it. Week 1 is here, but before we can dive into the full slate of games, we got to dive into some hot takes, because we know hot takes immediately turn cold if you throw them out into the ether once the games have already started. So before we can hit the field this weekend, we got to hit up my 4 favorite content creators from the NFC East to get their hot take on the 2024 NFL season. And I'll bring them in all at the same time. Gary Sheffield representing the Eagles, KB representing the Giants, Rio representing the Commanders, and J Tuck representing the Dallas Cowboys. Fellas, we made it. Week 1 is here. And as I was just mentioning, what good is going into the season if you don't have a hot take live on YouTube for everybody to go back to and see if you nailed it or see if you were way off? And that's exactly what we're going to do tonight. Before we get into your guys' hot takes, by the way, I have one for you, and it's on BetUS. And I have a feeling KB is not going to like it, but a hot take would be the New York Giants winning the NFC East right now on BetUS.
We went down. What?
Dropping KB. Every time I bring this up with you, it feels like it goes down 300 points. New York Giants right now, plus 2,000. That means you bet $100 on the Giants right now on BetUS to win the NFC East. If they pull off the hottest of hot takes, that would pay you $2,000. So if you are on KB's side and you are thinking, I don't want to say a miracle because the Giants are the kings of pulling off miracles in this league. If you want to get in on that, head over to BetUS right now. 150% bonus on your first 3 deposits, up to $2,000 with the code YouTube 150. I don't hope I stole your hot take, by the way, right there, KB. I had a feeling you'd be going that way. So
that's too hot. That's too hot. It's too hot.
KB's smarter than that, man. That's a smart guy right there.
Well, let's put it to the test. Let's see how smart KB really is. We'll start with KB right now. Right. KB, we're heading into week 1. The season's here. You look across all the storylines leading into this. What are your thoughts? A few months from now, 5 months from now, we look back. What's one thing you could see happening that would shock the world? No one sees coming. Give me your hot take for the 2024 NFL season.
Something that the world will not see coming, including Giants fans, is if everything goes right with the power of Brian Daboll, the Giants find a way to get a winning record this season. I think that's a hot take that some Giants fans have the Giants going like 12 wins. I don't see that happening, but for the Giants to squeak out a winning record, listen, there's some, I mean, it's plausible, right? You got the Giants who had a terrible 2023 season, but still wound up getting 6 wins out of that season, and 3 wins coming from Tommy DeVito consecutively, including beating the Green Bay Packers. This is a team that had a terrible roster in 2022 and made a playoff push. They actually had a 9-6-1 record and won a playoff game with that roster. So I think it's very possible that the Giants can kind of replicate what happened in 2022 and kind of, with Brian Daboll and the coaching staff, kind of hide the deficiency of their roster and still coach that team to a winning record. I think it's possible. I think the schedule is definitely difficult, but we've seen the Giants do this before time and time again throughout the years. I mean, you look at, I'm not talking Super Bowl here, but you look at most of their Super Bowl runs, they were never really considered to be anything in those years either. They were always the wild card. They were always highly doubted and always picked against, and they wound up coming up on top. So the Giants are no stranger to being underdogs and doubted, and definitely overcoming adversity throughout their seasons.
If the Giants were to pull that off, KB, what in your mind would be the catalyst for it? Would it be Daniel Jones coming back and playing in a fashion no one saw coming, Brian Daboll scheming things up no one saw coming? How do you see this hot take unfolding for the Giants?
Well, I definitely think it has to start with Daniel Jones being healthy. As much as the Giants fan base or the rest of the NFL world bashes Daniel Jones, he is our best quarterback right now. Drew Lock Yeah, some people say Drew Lock may be better, but he's hurt right now, so he's not even an option. And then Tommy DeVito, who are we kidding? He's a meme. That's all he is. He's not a great quarterback at all. He probably has the worst pocket presence I've ever seen in my entire life. But Daniel Jones has to remain healthy. Of course, Brian Daboll, he is now calling plays for the first time like throughout the season. He's called a couple of games in last year, but now he's going to be the full-time play caller. So I imagine the offense can get off to a pretty good start and kind of have some consistency throughout the season. And the defense, I have a lot of high hopes for the defense. The secondary is a little shaky, but you've got a very, very strong front seven, probably the strongest we've seen the front seven in quite a long time. The Giants have never had good linebackers at all, but now we have two really good linebackers in Bobby Okereke and Micah McFadden. So I definitely from the offense and the defense, I expect them to definitely play a part. But as far as the catalysts go, I would have to say Daniel Jones being healthy and Brian Daboll calling the plays full time.
Gary, let's shift gears to you. Going into 2024, what's one thing we might look back on come February that might shock the world that you think has a possibility of actually coming true?
You know, believe it or not, I'm going with the Arizona Cardinals, and I'm going with Kyler Murray. This is a player that I have been low on in years past. I mean, I'm living here in Arizona now. I go to a lot of games, and I can tell you guys that this is a player who, frankly, wasn't winning the battle of X's and O's. He wasn't thinking his way on the football field. It was a lot of athleticism. Well, with Jonathan Gannon, it's been different. He has been making a lot better reads. He's actually reading the football field. And when you bring Harrison Jr. into the mix, I believe as bad as this defense really is in Arizona, I think they're going to be a bad unit. But as far as fantasy football and for people who are making the prediction of what Kyler Murray will do, they're going to have the football in their hand a lot this year. I think Kyler Murray is going to be a top 3 fantasy football quarterback. I think he's going to be very good this year. And that's a huge step in the right direction because there are a lot of people who weren't sold on this player, and I couldn't blame them. But changing head coaches, changing coordinators, it actually seeming like it worked. And then obviously you end up with the player you want in the draft. So I think things should start looking up, maybe not in terms of a winning season or anything near the postseason, but you're talking about a player who's cementing himself as one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL.
Last time Kyler Murray had a true wide receiver one in DeAndre Hopkins, that's when he was playing his best ball. Do you think Marvin Harrison Jr. is that deciding factor in helping Kyler Murray get to what you're talking about here?
He's absolutely nasty. And you know what all 5 of us saw? Were a lot of people trying to fit other players that potentially could do what he does on the football field. But there's something to be said for putting up the numbers too. And there's a reason that he was rated the way he was rated. He has the pedigree. He has the lineage. And I think he's going to be the real deal. So when you talk about a player like that coming into this offense, sometimes what a player who's established in this league, who actually has the coordinator he wants, who actually has the head coach he wants, and it's not Cliff Kingsbury, well, you get to say, we're going to do more with what we have. I expect him to do more. And then when you have that athleticism, one more year off the ACL, that can only help. I'm looking forward to watching him.
4-win season for the Cardinals last year, so the bar is low. If Kyler comes out hot, the NFC, as we know, it's wide open at the bottom. So it will be interesting to see what Arizona has. I like you, Gary, look at Arizona as a team that I think is better than meets the eye. And if Kyler plays to his caliber this year, they'll certainly wind up reaching that mark. Jay Tuck, let's go to you. Give me your hot take. One thing that you think would shock the world happening here in 2024.
It's going to sound hot, but I'm not sure what the world is really thinking. But I'm going to go with the Chicago Bears are going to make the playoffs. I feel like Caleb Williams is definitely going to be one of those quarterbacks that can transcend, a team and a franchise. They already had a young, solid defense as well. Then you add the weapons with Roman Dunze out there as well. So I think that my hot take, quote unquote, I'm going to go with the Chicago Bears. And then also with the drop off of Minnesota, I feel like those are going to be a few games where they can sneak, especially in the NFC North. So Chicago Bears making the playoffs will be one. And then the other one I already had mentioned on our show is that I think the Commanders are going to also make the playoffs as well. So I got high hopes. Like I just know
What are we
Dan
doing
Quinn is.
here? What are we
Well,
doing?
I know what Dan Quinn is. I mean, they're pretty much the Washington Cowboys. I mean, he pretty much just took our entire roster.
Also, you're
and
just
coaching
taking the
staff.
credit for it.
I mean, yeah, you know what I'm saying? They beat us, saying so.
Backhanded compliment. I'll take it.
Yeah.
If it puts us in the playoffs, I will. Hey, that's my boy right there. That's my boy.
So yes, I'm gonna go with the Commanders and Jaden Daniels to make the playoffs as well. So those are my two hot takes. The Commanders and the Chicago Bears will be in the playoffs.
You got high hopes for the two rookie quarterbacks, so I have to assume is one of those two an absolute lock for rookie of the year?
Caleb Williams.
So if I said to you, Caleb Williams or the field, you're taking Caleb Williams.
Caleb Williams, yeah.
I would too.
Yeah. I think he's special. Now he's a little quirky.
Yes.
You know, he's a little different, but just from a talent perspective, he has everything, man.
He's a superstar,
He's,
man.
he's just one of those
Absolutely.
ones where you just sit back and you watch it and just be like, it's all there. Now the emotional aspect, because Gary mentioned Kyler Murray, like he kind of has that kind of Kyler Murray-esque. But Kyler has all the talent in the world, but it's just sometimes you kind of get inside yourself a little bit. I think they're going to really control Caleb with his emotions, and he's going to lead this team. He has a good surrounding around him. So I think that Caleb Williams would definitely win Offensive Rookie of the Year.
I hope they don't change him because guys are who they are, man. Kyler, we can say we want about it. He got himself paid. He got himself paid.
But it's
himself,
different though, because now you're dealing with grown men. You know what I'm saying? You're dealing with
Mm-hmm.
grown men, so the way you went about things in college is going to be a little bit different. You know what I'm saying?
Of course.
I think he'll adapt. I think he'd be perfectly fine. He'll adapt. So I'm going with Caleb Williams.
Shout out to Caleb, DMV's own.
It's interesting too. These new wave of quarterbacks, they're already coming into the league millionaires. I mean, Caleb Williams was living in a penthouse while he was playing at USC. So, to your point there, the transition does not need to happen. They're already walking into the league as professional players. This is, the NIL is brand new, as is this transition into watching what that looks like coming into the league. I mean, we saw Marvin Harrison Jr. He held out on the player likeness deal with Fanatics in terms of his likeness being used for jerseys and whatnot. I'm pretty sure Caleb Williams was trying to get his contract signed under an LLC. You don't see that done all the time. These guys are getting savvier. They're getting richer. Yeah. It's a whole new wave. And I think those two quarterbacks right there, Jaden Daniels and Caleb Williams, they're going to be leading the charge. And I think Rio, more than anybody, is really hoping that the charge is led by Jaden Daniels for his Washington Commanders. Before I get to your hot take, Rio, I just got to ask you, because Jay Tuck brought it up. Are you in agreement? Do you think the Commanders have a playoff run in them in Jaden Daniels' rookie year here?
I will not even merely utter the word playoffs in year one. I think we're going to shock some folks at how competitive and how quick the turnaround of a lot of these new pieces are, but you won't catch me using the P word in year one, man. I'm going to let that be house money and the cherry on top of a great transitional year if it did happen.
So your hot take will not be the Commanders making the playoffs. You're going to let that one play out, and I get it. You don't want to jinx anything. I don't blame you. So feel free to jinx another team, Rio. Give me your hot take for 2024.
I got two quick ones. I got one for my team and one for the league. We'll start with the entire NFL. I think the team that not enough people are talking about when I look at the landscape of the NFL, take out the Chiefs because we already know what they are. You look around the league, how many teams have a combination of Super Bowl winning head coach, Super Bowl quarterback? You're going to have to look far and wide, but there's a team in Los Angeles that has both, and they won them together just a couple years ago. The Los Angeles Rams will represent the NFC in the Super Bowl this year. I got a Chiefs-Rams Super Bowl because people forget about them. Cooper Kupp's going to be healthy this year, added to Puka Nacua. Added to another year of Kyron Williams in that Sean McVay offense, add Blake Corum to the mix. That is a well-rounded football team. That is a balanced football team. We know McVay is the X's and O's methodical guy. They have a good defense as well. I know they just shipped a very good linebacker out of there. That's a good team. That team gave the Lions absolute hell in the first round of the playoffs last year, and people sleep on Matthew Stafford. He is a killer, and if given a pick when it comes to the playoffs, I'm taking him over any of these young quarterbacks in a playoff game, winner takes all situation. The Rams will represent the NFC in the Super Bowl. As far as Washington, I think we will have an all-pro candidate on the defensive side of the ball, and his name is Frankie Louvu. I think Dan Quinn and Joe Witt Jr., they're going to utilize Frankie Louvu like Target brand Micah Parsons. Not exactly the real thing. I'm not talking about a apples to apples comparison, but Frankie Louvu is such a versatile Swiss Army knife for this defense. We're talking about a 120 plus tackle guy that's giving you over 5 sacks a season. They're going to use him off the edge. They're going to use him to blitz on the inside, and he's going to be holding down that linebacker spot opposite Bobby Wagner in the middle of our defense. We have the most excitement of everything we've done this offseason, not named Jaden Daniels, with Frankie Louvu. He was our most exciting acquisition this offseason. He got a 3-year contract here in a year where we're only giving out really 1-year prove-it deals to guys like Jeremy Chin, to guys like Zach Ertz and Bobby Wagner, who are just making possibly a pit stop. Maybe they could re-up for another year going forward. But we had the confidence to give Frankie Louvu a 3-year contract to come in here and be one of our main pieces of our defense here. I trust Ken Norton Jr., Dan Quinn, and Joe Witt Jr. to put their minds together and produce an all-pro caliber player, because Lord knows we ain't seen one in a minute. Since Brandon Sheriff and then Trent Williams, Washington ain't seen an all-pro in a very long time. I think we got a candidate, and he's going to look so fly in that number 4 single-digit number here in D.C. That guy's crazy. Like, he has a screw loose, and I like my linebackers a little crazy. I like a little early showing CTE out of my linebackers, and I think Frankie Louvu fits that to a T.
Fellas, my favorite hot takes are the ones that are long shots, but they have a chance. I don't love the hot takes that are blatant. You know, they're hot takes for the sake of hot takes, but I'm looking around here. I think Kyler Murray could definitely have a great season. I think the Rams could certainly be vying for a Super Bowl opportunity. I think that Caleb Williams could certainly lead the best Chicago Bears team, maybe in my lifetime on paper, to the playoffs. And look, KB, the Giants, they beat the 18-0 Patriots in the Super Bowl. You can't tell me a winning season isn't the craziest take that you've heard surrounding what the Giants are capable of doing when people are doubting them. So I love the takes, fellas. They were hot, but there's opportunity for them to wind up coming to fruition. And I love that. And we'll get the chance to start seeing these unfold this coming weekend as week 1 kicks off. Fellas, I cannot wait to dive into this season with you. And for the folks watching at home, we cannot wait to have you along for the ride. It's going to be a hell of a season. On the way out the door, if you could, hit the like button. Make sure to hit that subscribe button so that you are along for the ride with us throughout the duration of the season. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, those New York Giants, speaking of hot takes, plus 2,000 to win the NFC East. If you got a hot take or your own, make sure to go take advantage of it. On BetUS, we have a 150% bonus on your first 3 deposits up to $2,000 with the code YouTube150. For KB, for Gary, for J Tug, for Rio, I'm your host, Z-Bot. Enjoy week 1, everybody. We can't wait to have you in for week 2 next week. Peace.
Let's go.